but you get some guys that are good.
Thank you everyone for being here. We'll bring tonight's city council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Presentations, public safety presentation. Chief DeSharm.
Thank you. I was asked to stop by briefly and just go over a couple of things that happened in the past month on Highway 65. The first one I'd like to talk about is what happened on March 30th of this year, 8/29, approximately 198th Avenue Northeast and Highway 65. This was in the northbound lanes where fire rescue and law enforcement and EMS responded to a rollover PI, personal injury accident, in the northbound lanes. Nobody was hurt at the accident scene of the pickup truck that was on its roof in the ditch, thankfully. And it was, if you remember, that was the last snowy, I think we had 2-3 inches of snow that came down all of a sudden, and it was icy and things like that, really snarled up traffic, not only on Highway 65, but system-wide. One of our fire trucks, Rescue 11, was rear-ended while blocking traffic. And just going to show you that video, if I could. I really know how to do this. There we go. I'll get it to you. One second here, it's coming. I haven't had a chance to go over this, so.
That's a big accident.
That was
Worldwide.
worldwide, yeah.
Do we have our own satellite?
Yeah, we do. And I think I have to take this and pass it over this way.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, because it thinks it's multiple. Okay, so this is actually from the traffic cams that are cameras that are right north of 65 and Viking. One thing it does show you is how good these cameras are, you know, as far as definition. So we're going to play this, and I'll talk here a little bit. So on the it's two different cameras, two different views. On the very right, you can see the pickup truck lying on its roof. That's our rescue truck that just got there. In front of it is a line of ambulance, and to the side is the chief's car. And the report is that there's no injuries. So after we got out and checked out, checked the accident scene, the deputy was asked if he wanted the truck to remain, the fire truck to remain there to block, and he indicated that he did. So right about now, you'll see pretty quick here at the ambulance, they're going back to it and they're actually going to drive away. I've often said that this is the most dangerous thing that firefighters and responders do, standing on this highway. And he goes to get in, and you know, as of right now, you know, traffic's slowing down, and we ask over and over again that really, when you come upon these scenes, please slow down and don't stare at the accident because you'll have the tendency to steer your vehicle right into it. And it takes a little bit here, but there's going to be a witness car that's going to pull out. You can see it on the, especially the right view. And we're going to help it get out. We're not sure what the ambulance is going to do. And there it goes. And he almost hits that car that just pulled
The
out.
ambulance?
The
Yeah.
ambulance, yeah.
It's almost got
Jesus.
To this day, I don't think they realized how close that was. But anyway, so we're getting ready to possibly clear ourselves, and we were asked to move that truck up a little bit closer. So that truck is protecting, I think it's 1 or 2 squad cars, and the deputies were standing there. So it's moving up. And in the right-hand lane, pretty quick here she comes. On the left, you can see it.
Oh, jeez. Look at this.
And she's going to
Spray.
decide that she needs to get in the left lane right about now. And she loses control. And that's how easy
Oh.
that happens. So, the first thing we do is, we're going to make sure everybody's all right. That was the first question. That happened to be a state trooper, commercial inspector, who happened to be going to another accident, and he was going southbound, saw it happen, and he pulled in. He pulled in to help out at this scene and actually right the accident. Now, the girl that was driving, she was not hurt, other than minor aches and pains. All the airbags in the car went off. We had 2 firefighters in the vehicle, and we had just had a training. And one of the things the DOT guy said is, if you're gonna sit in a car sit in a truck blocking traffic, put your seatbelts on. And guess what? They had their seatbelts on. And
Good for them.
yeah, so that worked out. So
What's this guy pulling out on the left?
he's trying to get home or get to work.
Make a U-turn,
So
it
he's
looks
gonna
like.
make a U-turn there.
Yeah, right, yeah. And, we did have to shut down 65 then, and, it took a while. On the left-hand camera, you'll see the duty officer car pull up pretty quick. And
Did the ambulance come back?
it does.
Well-
And right about now, you'll see that too. The ambulance will come back. Now, they went up to the first turnaround, and they were supposed to go back to the East Bethel station, fire station, and here they come. They're back.
Look at these people trying to make U-turns and backing
so.
up and.
But thankfully, nobody was hurt. We did sustain about $8,000, it looks like, in damage on the fire truck. Insurance companies are handling that. So the truck is in service. It really got hit pretty good there, as you saw it. They're
70,000 though?
no, it's 7,000.
7,000, okay, I was trying to think 70 out of that, so.
So,
Wow.
okay, let's see if I can go over and grab
The
this.
thing is, they gotta make all the parts for that truck. They can't buy parts for
Right.
that rescue. They have to make them all, so.
So it was an interesting day, no doubt about it. All right. So then, April 7th, 2022, about 11:25 p.m., right before midnight, the accident was reported, this accident was reported at 237th Avenue Northeast and Highway 65. And it was actually a little bit south of there is what happened. And this was a fatal accident involving another pickup truck. And even though the vehicle was traveling northbound, the crash ended up on the southbound lanes. So literally, there was 2 lanes that were closed, one northbound lane and one southbound lane. And our crews were out there, assisting. And they were actually waiting for the tow trucks to show up to roll the car over so the firefighters could do their job. So at this one, the police or the sheriff's department were assigned to traffic control and blocking lanes, and this is what happened. And so this deputy got hit from the rear, and it did significant damage. The deputy did suffer some minor injuries, was taken to the hospital and checked out, and the deputy is fine. But once again, this is something where people driving too fast. I realized that night it was very, very icy. But when you come across this, once again, we ask that you slow down, look, and you make sure that you got control of your car.
You can almost see the ice in the picture.
Yeah.
How
Right.
icy the road is.
Right.
Mark,
So-
is that the concrete? I've heard that complaint from other firefighters, that concrete up there is worse than the blacktop.
I don't know if council remembers, I kind of brought that up for discussion at the last meeting. And I don't know what it is, and I'm not an engineer, so I can't tell you. But we tend to have real icy conditions in that part of Highway 65. And it really goes down to almost Klondike. And then, it's almost like it's a different material after that. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just my.
I remember talking to, I can't remember if it was a highway patrol or was it a county engineer, about the fact how we have concrete roadway but asphalt shoulders. And they're saying in their mind, a lot of accidents happen because there's different traction, and
Right.
you're losing traction on concrete, hit the asphalt,
And it's
and you
different.
grip.
Yeah.
And that's what's causing a lot of, what in their mind what it was,
Yeah.
so. But there had to be a lot of flashing lights there, you slow down.
Yeah, there were, and,
Well, and it was midnight. By this time, it was basically
yes,
midnight.
correct.
Yeah.
And this, so we were out there for several hours, taking care of business. That was the pickup truck, that was, anyway. So, those are the two accidents that, I just want to make council aware of. And also our residents, that, when you do see these, you come up and you see the flashing lights, slow down, get a lane away from them. If at all possible, just, get away from us. We try not to walk in the traffic lanes, but sometimes that does happen. Fact of the matter, if that fire truck wouldn't have been there, we probably would have had some deputies that would have been hurt, because that car that spun out and hit the fire truck would have kept going and hit those two squad cars.
Yeah.
And the deputies were standing right between them, so.
Do you know if the sheriff's department's gonna respond or react to these things happening on 65? I mean, I'm sure it's a coincidence,
Yeah.
but within 10 days, we had two
Yeah,
of them.
right. So I'm really not sure, but that would be something to.
Yeah, I
ask-
know
ask
they
our
had a
residents.
posting on Facebook, the sheriff's department did, and showed the photos and stuff, so.
Right. So, anyway, one other thing, if I could, that's kind of public safety. So today, there's, I don't know, from about 11:30 on, maybe a little bit later, and it's still going on. St. Francis had a very large fire going on, grass fire, wildland fire. And I just wanted to grab the attention of the council and the residents, as long as I'm here, about burning. So what's burning over in St. Francis is basically a wetland, and the fire got into the cattails, and we had a pretty good wind, and there was no stopping it. It was burning faster than we could put it out.
Mm.
So we had several departments there. I think they cut everybody down, now, so it's there's just the DNR in St. Francis. But you know, like I say that for several hours, you know, we were there, you know, putting out a fire. I'm not sure how it started, but things, I know we had a couple inches of rain or close to a couple inches of rain last week. I understand that, but things are really dry. Now, starting today, the DNR has put burning restrictions in place. So you can no longer get a burning permit. You can still have recreational fires, and remember, recreational fires are 3 feet by 3 feet. And, you know, just burn the right stuff. You can't be burning furniture and stuff like that, which we're seeing. So no burning permits, DNR burning restrictions are in place. Use common sense when you're doing your recreational fires. Otherwise, you're going to have what's going on today with helicopters and water bombers and, you know, everything else.
Chief, where exactly is that one in St. Francis?
Well, so it'd be just right west of Bethel, like 245th and Larch on the north side, and on the south side, 237th and.
Any road closures or anything?
No, they're open now, but it was there weren't any structures that burned, but there were several that were in danger, and
There's some houses back in there.
yep, absolutely, and we checked on just about all the houses that border that, so that's a state land back there too. So I think the DNR is going to be there most of the night, you know, getting the deadheads because there's still flames out there, but at least the grass and the imminent danger's gone.
Any cause?
I haven't heard yet.
You haven't heard?
Yeah, so.
That's interesting, because today WCCO at the 5 o'clock news, they said it was in East Bethel, not St. Francis. So I was expecting you to talk about a fire in East Bethel tonight.
No, it wasn't in East Bethel, it was in St. Francis. You know, East Bethel was there, we had units there, so we were there, in fact, I just came from there, so. That's why I wasn't even sure if this was gonna work.
I noticed the uptick in illegal burn calls since your last time you were here, so.
Yes, yeah. That's the last time I say, hey, we're doing a good job, there weren't any.
I wasn't gonna say that, but okay.
Okay, red lights, slow down, move over. Look for us on the road, please. Any other questions?
Well, I do have a comment,
Yeah.
because I see a lot of accidents in driving up and down 65, especially around Blaine and stuff. And I've never seen them use a truck like a fire truck to block the truck that got hit. Is that something just we do, or is
Oh,
that
that's
a
very common.
policy?
Yeah,
But I've never noticed it
yeah,
before.
it's very common. Usually we try to use the bigger trucks, but on this particular case, when that rescue went out, it thought it was going to a car accident, and that was going to be the main duty of it. And, you know, the other personnel hadn't arrived yet to, you know, at least right away to bring out other apparatus.
Interesting, okay.
But
thanks.
yes, everybody does that. And you know what, Counselor? I get that question all the time from people saying, you know, why do they do that? We do it, that's part of the assistance that we provide.
Well, obviously that action saved some other
Yes.
potential injuries there, so.
That's a big-
Truck's easy to fix, so.
Yeah. So,
Any questions for Chief? Any questions from the audience?
just shook up a little bit.
Well, it's good information, and I'm glad you came and
Sure,
helped spread this news and
sure.
the concerns. To me, one of the hardest things to do when you're going through an action scene is not to look at the accident.
It is.
Just focus on the car in front of you, that's all you gotta do.
Right, yes.
Let your passenger look and tell you the story, so.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's consent agenda.
Second,
Motion made in second, any discussion?
I'd like to pull item B, as in boy.
Okay,
I'd like to pull item A, D, E, and F.
so we have item C and item G. Okay, to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Suzanne, item A.
All right, item A is on page 7, the motor vehicle purchase for $46,000 plus. I just want to ask, did we get the vehicle or it's just ordered?
Those are the tractors, aren't
The
they?
tractor-
The two tractors.
yes.
Have we received that yet, Nate?
Oh, great. So can I come up and look at them sometime? All right, with that, I will make a motion to pull to approve item A on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Brian, item B.
Item B is the meeting minutes, March 28th, page 13 of the packet, or page 3 of 15 of the minutes. About halfway down, 7 paragraphs, there's just a typo. As it's wrote, it states Mundell stated not matter what. And it should read no matter what.
No matter what.
And so unless there's any other corrections,
I didn't catch any.
I'll make a motion to approve item B.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Item D.
Okay, item D is for the hiring of a building permit technician. So I'm confused about this whole position. I thought Desiree was hired to do this job, or else that Nick and Steve were doing this job. Am I wrong?
Desiree was the building permit technician. She was hired to be the accounting assistant.
So this person is taking Desiree's job.
That's correct.
Okay, I was just confused, that's obviously. All right, so my next question on this job is, why are we hiring brand new people at such high rates? I mean, why wouldn't we hire them at like the beginning rate and let them earn the steps and grades?
We had 4 applicants for this position. 4. It's a very tight labor market. And the average salary over 9 comparable cities for this position was $29 an hour. We're paying less than that. And this applicant was by far the most qualified. And that's the only way that we could get this person to agree to the offer of employment. When you go out and you're hiring people now, it's very difficult to find people, and if you do, they're going to come at a higher price than they used to.
What was the rate prior?
So this is the same pay rate.
It's the same rate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I will make a motion to approve item D on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Item E.
And item E, I just wanted to say if Fire Chief Mark Descharme is going to be on the County Airport Authority alternate member, I welcome him and his expertise. And he's gone. Oh, well. Welcome. Welcome up there. With that, I'll make a motion to approve item E on the consent agenda. Say that right this time.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes.
All right.
Item F.
Item F is a resolution for a Dropbox authorization for East Bethel. Now, this I think is really not necessary. I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a terrible idea for any state. And what this is putting drop boxes for ballots, for voting ballots around the city. We don't have long lines in this city. We don't have, voting is a couple of days now. I don't see how anybody is having a problem getting here. I could see if we were having issues, but we're not. I think it opens it up to more fraud. And I'd like to know how it's going to be monitored to make sure, because right now we at least check to see if they're in the system, and sometimes you can't even read the writing on those things. So I don't think it's a good idea. I think it opens up to too much fraud and additional labor.
Currently, we only have the one drop box that's here at City Hall. The issue we have with that is it's not completely waterproof. These new drop boxes would have the cowling or the hood, kind of like the way the mailbox operates. So if you drop something in, it's not gonna get any moisture in it. The county does have this grant for us to do this upgrade. And as part of the upgrade too, we can also upgrade our security cameras on the exterior of the building to provide really, really detailed imagery on focusing on this one drop box.
So we're only gonna put in one drop box to replace the one that's here.
That's correct.
We already have one though.
We already have one,
Right.
but it's just to replace the
It's
existing.
just not waterproof then.
Oh. So this item is just authorization to apply for the grant?
Correct.
Okay.
How many ballots did we get put in the drop box last time?
I don't know, I would have to check and see that, I don't know the exact number. We had quite a few though.
That's where people drop their absentees. They get their absentees at home and then they drop
Yeah.
them here. And I know on the day before election, there was a line in here dropping off ballots
There's usually quite a rush and, you know,
at the end.
come here at closing time on the day of voting. And the line last year was stretched all the way up to the end of the parking lot. Now, those are people that came in here to vote. in
To
person.
vote.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion for item F on the consent agenda
Second.
Motion
That-
made,
Is that to approve it?
to approve it.
Okay.
motion made and second discussion. Hearing none to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes. And that now completes our consent agenda. On to new business, Park Commission. Nate?
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Evening.
Evening.
Item 6.0, the 2023 to 2027 Parks Capital Improvement Plan. The Parks Commission prepares an annual capital improvement plan which updates projected projects, evaluates priorities, and establishes funding for these works for the coming year and for each of the subsequent years for a 5-year period. The plan is presented to the City Council for their approval and used in preparation of the 2023 budget. Attached is the 2023 to 2027 Parks Capital Improvement Plan developed from discussions at the February 8th and March 8th Park Commission meetings. Approval of the plans only commits the city for projects identified in 2023. Projects beyond 2023 are for planning purposes and will be reevaluated annually for funding prioritization during the capital improvement planning process. The fiscal impact from these projected projects include a $5,000 city transfer to the Parks Capital Fund, a $5,000 increase from the 2022 amount for the 2023 budget. The increase would provide a total of $100,000 for the Parks Capital Improvement Plan projects for 2023 and is subject to City Council approval. It is anticipated that park dedication fees from developers will provide an additional $60,000 to the Park Acquisition and Development Fund for 2023. The Parks Commission voted unanimously to recommend the attached 2023 to 2027 Parks Capital Improvement Plan to the City Council for their consideration and approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 to 2027 Parks Capital Improvement Plan.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second, discussion.
Jack, I do have a question on the $5,000 transfers. I know back during the recession that the city tightened its belt and reduced the park budget to a certain amount. And then the plan was to keep adding each additional year to build it back up. We'd add $5,000 per year. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that before recession, the city was transferring 100,000 a year to the parks.
Correct.
Now that it will be back up to 100,000, are we still going to be transferring the 5,000 per year, or are we just gonna cap it at the 5,000?
That will be a discussion that we will have at the next year's budget preparation.
Okay,
Now, the parks transfer was cut from 100,000 to 50,000 for the 2012 budget.
yep,
So in 2013 or 2014, we've been gradually increasing that to try to get it back up to that number that was in 2013.
yep,
In developing this plan, we used that fixed amount then going forward, but that can
I-
change if the council sees fit.
I did see that.
Yeah.
You mean you'd take more money?
I think the park commission, yes, they would.
Are you up to date on all your park dedication fees? Is everybody, like Panagold, all them, everybody paid all their fees?
The only outstanding one, and we're working with Service, and Chris and I have had some discussions, is the Cambia Hills
Cambia.
Park dedication fee. And I have a call scheduled with Rob Fugly tomorrow to see what we can do. They do have an escrow there that's got $28,000 in it. And to tell him that we want to use that to pay off a portion of the outstanding balance of their park dedication fees. And they do owe, or Service doesn't owe, but there's an outstanding debt of about $3,000 for the utility payments for March through July, when Cambia Hills closed and when Service took over the project. So we'll have a report on that at the next council meeting.
And that's reflected on the first part of the park capital fund, the park acquisition and development fund. It shows a negative balance here. This was developed with that Cambia Hills park dedication originally planned for. So that's why it's showing a negative balance there.
Do they ever have any long-range thoughts about lighting all the rest of the other fields over here in Booster West besides, is that somewhere else down the line?
It's been discussed. The main reason for the ball field, this is just for the regulation ball field. The town team plays 9-inning games, and they can't get them in after work before it gets too dark. So these would go, allow for some of the older kids in the town team to be
Okay.
able to play.
Because I mean, if you lighted those other fields, you could probably use them later into the evening, right?
That is correct too,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So for this one, we have 130 budgeted. That could change a little bit, but for 2023. And then in the park dedication is new skateboard equipment in Booster West, court resurfacing at Whispering Oaks, tennis court resurfacing at Whispering Oaks Park, and a piece of playground upgrade there. And then a piece of the Baton Trail segment that would connect 225th to 226th. We have another piece of that trail in 2025. They wanted to split that up to kind of keep that project moving along.
A little bit every couple of years and get
Correct.
it finished.
Yep. And then for this year, it's not shown on here, but we have a trail, we're gonna finish up the Booster West Trail. Those, the trail's been built, we're getting bids on the paving this week, and we'll have that at your next council meeting, the result from that. And that should be paved by the end of June, so we'll have it ready to go for Booster Day. It'll be a blacktop trail that goes all around Booster West, connects Booster East to Booster West, and goes out to the baseball field and the playground and everything there, so. That'll be in the next couple months. We're gonna work on a trail at John Anderson Park, a longer trail there that the Park Commission passed for actually 2022. And then tennis court resurfacing at Whispering Aspen, and a piece of playground at Bondi Park that's really old that needs to be replaced. That's for this year.
I have a question. This map shows a lot of wonderful proposed trails, a lot of red dots, dashes. I really like the idea of this, but other than the ones you just mentioned, there's no estimate of when any of this might ever get completed. I'm just wondering if there are some kind of grants or anything like that available, if anybody's done any research into that.
Yeah, we're always looking for grant money. There's, a lot of these on here are for long-range planning.
Right.
Some of these were put in the 2008 Parks Comp Plan when that was done. We've added to it a couple times. This blue line that you see running kind of through the middle of the city is the Anoka County North Regional Trail. That's in their long-term planning as well, but that could be a long time before that's actually put in. They're kind of working their way south in the county as they redo the county roads. Like along Lexington Avenue, they've brought the trail all the way up to Bunker, but it stops there where the 4-lane road stops. Eventually, that's going to connect to, that kind of sneaks into this corner of the city here, and that'll connect to the Coon Lake Beach and up towards Linwood and Martin Lake. But yeah, a lot of these are long range. They're not budgeted for. It's more of just a planning tool, so we have something to kind of go on. When stuff does come up, we can say, hey, this is where we have a trail plan. Let's maybe look at building a piece of this at that time. Or this large green area here, and a lot of these in our plan here, there's some items that say future park plan or park pavilion. We're anticipating this whole green area, there's no parks available in the city. A lot of development looks like it'll take place with the Elevage property and any other thing in the city utility area. With the high density homes, those are the kind of areas that the Park Commission wants to target for some open space and recreational areas. So we kind of like to build a little bit of a nest egg to develop a nice park down there at some time in the future.
And what about the yellow dots that are natural trails? How hard are those to complete? I mean, if they're not paved, to me, it shouldn't cost that much, but I don't really know too much about how much a natural trail would cost.
Not many of them.
The natural trail we have right now is the one around Fish Lake. There had been talk of finishing this up around the north end of the lake to kind of complete a loop, but crossing the road's kind of been the issue in the past, hasn't it, Jack? And getting it all the way around.
You know, that and the proximity of the edge of the pavement to the lake itself in several places, there'd have to be some boardwalk built to accommodate that. That's actually been discussed since 2007, but it would be nice if something could happen there. Or maybe the next time the county does a road project in there, that could be included as something that would be part of it.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, sorry.
Any other discussion? To the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. We have an approved CIP plan.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you,
Thank
Nate.
you.
I
So-
will say, since I'm their liaison, they do discuss at great length the things that, the priorities and what's not and what's, they do take some time thinking about that.
Okay, department reports. Jack?
7G1, charitable gambling, proposed change of reimbursement methods. Minnesota State Statutes, Chapter 349, provides regulations for the lawful gambling industry through the Minnesota Gambling Control Board to ensure the integrity of operations and provide for the lawful use of net profits. Charitable gambling is conducted only by registered nonprofit organizations. Per this statute, the city approved ordinance number 163B, which is City Code Section 42-196 on February 15th, 2006, which imposed a local gambling tax of 3% per year on the gross receipts of each gambling organization's operating lawful gambling in the city from all lawful gambling proceeds less prizes actually paid out by the organization. The most common regulation methods that the cities are authorized to use are: number one, require organizations to contribute 10% of the net profits from lawful gambling to a fund administered by the city, impose a gambling tax or charge an investigation fee, or impose no tax at all on charitable gambling. Of the surrounding municipalities, all cities that collect from gambling monies use the charitable gambling contribution format or do not require a tax contribution. The following table in your packet outlines those cities and the process which they use to collect charitable gambling proceeds. East Bethel approved a local gambling tax on a licensed organization of 3% per year of the gross receipts from gambling. City staff conducts regular gambling inspections to fulfill management and regulation requirements of the ordinance. Gambling tax proceeds received in 2021 were $72,000 as opposed to $40,500 in 2020. $40,000 is included in both the 20 and 21 projected city budgets as income from this source. All proceeds the city receives from charitable gambling have been earmarked to use as funds to pay for the city's law enforcement contract with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. In 2021, the city received more gambling revenue than the estimated cost of regulating lawful gambling. As the amount of revenue has become much greater than the regulation expense and contracted law enforcement site inspections of the exterior premises are no longer allowed as an eligible expense, the city will be required to reimburse a portion of the Gambling Control Board of that surplus. The city was notified of this situation on March 17, 2022, and reimbursements are yet to be determined. Staff is working with the Gambling Control Board to determine that amount. To avoid owing future reimbursements, city staff recommends that City Council consider amending the current ordinance to eliminate the gambling tax and adopt a charitable contribution method of collecting revenues from lawful gambling. Additionally, repealing the gambling tax and changing the ordinance to a charitable contribution would allow the city additional flexibility in the use of these funds and release the city of the responsibility for conducting inspections and filing inspection reports with the Gambling Control Board. Currently, there are 5 business locations that are approved and licensed in the city to conduct charitable gambling operations. These are Route 65 Pub and Grub, Moonshine Whiskey, EJ's Bottle Shop, Smokies, and Hidden Haven. The difference between the revenue collected by the city between the two methods is undetermined at this time. The city will have to obtain the forms filed with the licensee to the Gambling Control Board for calculation of their net profits to obtain this information. From the information we received when this matter was discussed in 2015, it is estimated that changing the formula for collecting these funds would reduce the revenue by at least 50%. Assuming the same level of gambling activity for 2022, it is projected that revenues for this budget category could be reduced from $70,000 to $35,000. This lower expectation, however, would approximate our budget figure of $40,000 for this revenue category in 2022. Staff requests that City Council direct staff to advertise for a public hearing for the April 25th, 2022 council meeting to consider changing our ordinance regulating lawful gambling to require charitable donations in lieu of the current gambling tax and to amend those sections of that ordinance that are no longer in line with state statutes.
Jack, do we know, I know you haven't calculated, but an idea of how much we're talking about in terms of paying back to gambling board?
Not really. We don't have all those forms. We'd have to go back to the forms to see what their net profits were, but I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be in the $25,000, $30,000 range.
I'm gonna make a motion to direct staff to advertise a public hearing for the April 25th, 2022 council meeting to consider changing our ordinance regulating lawful gambling to require charitable donations in lieu of the current gambling tax and to amend those sections that are no longer in line with the state statutes.
I'll second it.
Motion made, second, discussion.
So this is just for a public hearing,
That's,
and we'll have discussion after.
that's correct. That'll be the public hearing. The ordinance that's included there is the one that we were proposing to present with the changes. And then we'll have discussion and approval of the ordinance. We'll work on too, and we're still working with the Gambling Control Board to determine that amount of reimbursement. So it would only be for 2021 and what we've collected this year. So we'll have a better idea of what that amount is at the next meeting.
So that amount really has no effect on our budget because it's additional revenue we didn't expect anyway.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's just the law that's gonna direct that.
That's correct.
Why are we going from 3% to 10%? That seems like a big drop.
Well, the 3% is on gross sales. The 10% is on net profits. So the net profits are the expenses that these charitable organizations or the gambling charitable organizations deduct from their gross before you figure what it is. So it's gonna be less money than the 3%. Because the 3% is on the gross, the 10% is on the net.
So are we still gonna charge a 3% and a 10%, or it's gonna be totally 10%?
No, we would do 10%. You actually can do both, but I don't see any reason. We don't want to do any more since now they're not allowing us to claim the inspection of the premises by the sheriff's department, which is part of the validation that we use to spend that money on the sheriff's department contract. Now, we can still use what we get to offset or spend that on the sheriff's department contract, however, it'll just be less money.
Well, and it's a lot less hassle for the city.
It's a
lot
liability.
less
It's a lot
And
paperwork
more
less.
flexibility.
Yeah.
and more flexibility to give to what we want to give it to.
But, I mean, I remember that discussion back
Yeah.
then, and it was a distinct difference in the
Yeah.
revenue part of it.
And the revenue jumped considerably this year, and we attribute that to COVID.
Well, my only concern is, but, you know, is that a blip? And, you know, 2022
Yeah.
goes back to the previous
Yeah.
years, and now we are gonna have a lot
Yeah,
less
yeah,
revenue.
yeah.
So,
But we're gonna have those numbers
well, we
by the
won't.
next meeting.
No, not for
Yeah.
2022, we won't.
No,
No.
2022
So,
is,
We're assuming 2022 is gonna stay the same as it was last year.
Yeah, we're assuming that level of gambling for 2021 if you assume that stays the same for 2022, we would have that excess revenue over what it costs to regulate that.
So I think the question, we don't need to answer it here, but when we do have it is, if that's the case, what was the 2019 revenue pre-COVID? Theoretically, 2019, throw out 2020, but 2019 pre-COVID, what was the revenue then?
I'm gonna have to look and double check, but I believe it was fairly close to what we budgeted, around $40,000.
So,
So then last year was an anomaly then?
Last year was, the question is, will that continue? So who knows?
And so do we gamble and say it's gonna continue? Cause if it does go back, then I'd like to see what our projected revenue would be. We're gonna lose out.
Well, the other thing is the justification for our 3% was based on the fact that we could use our sheriff's department time to patrol our trade area and patrol the exterior premises of these places that did the gambling. Now, if we use the sheriff's department to go in and actually do the inspections, we could claim their cost, but I don't think we want to do that.
no.
So that changed.
That changed,
All
that's
right,
correct.
okay.
So regardless of what it is, I think the 10% is our best option now.
so if we go from the 3% to the 10%, say keep it there for 2 years, we don't like the results, in 2 years' time, can we change it back to the 3%?
We could, but we would have to change the way we do our inspections and probably have the sheriff's department become more active and actually go in the establishments.
But it's not a set in stone category. then.
That's correct.
We can't change it in the future.
It can be changed anytime we want to.
Okay.
I guess I'm not understanding why the difference, at 10%, they don't have to go in and inspect, at 3%, they have to go in and inspect. I'm confused on the difference there.
That's just the way the regulations are, and I don't, when you go to the 10%, then the state does the inspections. When you go to 3%, the city is responsible for the inspections.
And then this list on here on page 34 of examples of expenditures,
Mm-hmm.
is that what the cities are spending the revenue from the 10% on? Or is-
Correct. So there's about 25 or 30 different categories that you can spend it on if you go to the 10% method of collection. If you go to the 3%, it was allocated only for contracted law enforcement expenses. So it was totally restricted to one category.
So the way it is now can only be used to pay for the sheriff. The way it's going to, we can pick from those 25 things
That's correct.
that we're going to, that we get the option of donating to.
Yes.
I know, I just feel like that increase is taking away from these organizations that do the gambling, that they donate to needy causes too, and I feel like we're taking away from those
Yeah.
needy causes.
We don't have to take
No.
any money.
And by going to the 10%, it gives more money back to
Back
those
to those-
charitable
Right.
contributions they make.
But isn't that true? We don't have to take
No.
10%. We can just tell them, use the money for all your youth leagues if we want to.
We could do that, that's
Yeah.
correct, that's an option. As you can see, Cambridge and Isani don't do anything on this.
But part of that is, you know, the 10% has to be spent within our community.
At our trade area.
The gambling operation doesn't have that obligation. They just have to spend it within their trade area,
Correct.
which could be
The
much,
state.
much larger.
As an example, Route 65 Pub and Grub, their charitable group is Andover Hockey,
Right.
so.
So it's a way,
Yeah.
so it's a way to keep some of the charitable
Yeah.
gambling proceeds within the
Yeah.
community.
And it's been that way forever, for
Yeah.
a long time. I think they did have another group, but they lost their gambling license. Or they lost they lost their nonprofit gambling ability to be a charitable gambling organization.
And just anecdotally, if you talk to these restaurants and bars, they're saying that gambling is still going at the level it was.
It's on that side of the table. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Item G2.
Ice Arena Management discussion. The current Ice Arena Management contract with Gibson Management Corporation was renewed effective August 1st, 2021 for a term of 3 years. The city has utilized Gibson Management since 2008 for the management and operation of the city ice arena. The city was responsible for the operation of this facility from its opening in 1995 until 2006. Super Rink managed the arena from 2006 to 2008, but declined to renew their contract with the city beyond that year. Gibson Management was contracted for the 2008-2009 year as the arena manager, and then received approval for a 3-year contract extension in 2009 and again in 2012. In the past 3 months, the city has received several complaints regarding the cleanliness of the facility, communication concerning scheduling with GMC, concession operations, and attention to daily maintenance items. Due to these complaints, city council members were given individual tours of the arena. As a result of their inspection of the facility, they directed staff to examine ways to correct these problems, including but not limited to consideration of contract modifications and/or proposals for a different management plan. Staff has met with the primary users of the facility, St. Francis High School and the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association, on March 3rd, March 17th, and April 6th to reinforce our commitment to the facility and discuss and address the concerns of both these groups. The 2 topics involving the arena at these meetings focused on, number 1, arena management. This has also been discussed at the city council level at our March work meeting. And this would be retaining the existing contract with Gibson Management in place, but with a final notice that any unmet performance obligations would result in the termination of the contract. Potential lease of the facility to St. Francis Youth Hockey Association for ice event activities and dry floor events, or transfer of the operation and management of the facility to the city. Terminate the contract with Gibson Management and solicit requests for proposals for a similar management agreement with a private contractor, or the sale of the facility. The other item that was discussed with the users was the arena maintenance and improvements. Staff met with Gibson Management on March 24th, 2022 to finalize the review and discussions of the ongoing issues at the arena and have the performance review of their completion of their contract obligations. This meeting focused on staffing and supervision, concession operations, building maintenance, and custodial expectations and timely response to scheduling changes. Attachment 2 in your packet gives a synopsis of those discussions with Gibson. In addition, staff met with the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association and St. Francis High School to discuss improvement projects for the arena on April 6, 2022. Projects that may be included in the schedule for 2022 using city funds are painting the interior of the arena, upgrading the public and officials and coaches' restrooms, replacing the existing mats and installing seamless rubber flooring coverings in the arena. Projects proposed to be funded by the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association are the updating of the lobby area, purchasing banners, tables, chairs, painting and replacing the lobby floor. City staff is working on budgets for these projects and will have a proposal to council by no later than May 9th, 2022, the 2022 meeting. Funds potentially available for the 2022 arena projects are $50,000 from the city and $100,000 from St. Francis Youth Hockey Association. The city's monies for the projects are from enterprise funds, which is totally financed by user fees. No city general funds are used for the arena operations or projects. Staff is seeking discussion of this item from City Council and direction from Council as to further consideration of the management contract and arrangements of the ice arena.
Discussion.
Jack, before we get going, I'd like to make a statement. There's been some stuff sent out there that the city is, kind of behind the ice arena, that it's costing them a lot of money, and that is all false. That they are self-sufficient. They are running rental ice time and things like that. So I just want people to understand that.
That's completely true. The ice arena is cash flowing to cover the operating expenses, and it's been this way since 2013.
I was at the last meeting with Jack with the high school and the youth hockey. I think everybody's on the same page. It's just, getting that place cleaned up, a nice coat of paint, cleaning, the bathrooms now, they're not, really don't want a complete overhaul. They want to do, some things in there that need it. So, probably save some money that way, but they think a good cleaning and, things like that. And I
So
think
we're not redoing the bathrooms
well,
now?
we don't have to completely remodel them. They're in favor of that now. They're kind of on board with that. So, just kind of fixing things that aren't working and maybe some new light fixtures and things like that. So,
There's this, seems like there's a couple things going on and it's not coalescing yet, but, people are coming up with ideas. We don't have any of these budgeted yet, correct?
Correct.
And so because of that, we don't have a plan yet. So is that the anticipation it's gonna come together as a proposal from
That's
staff?
what we want to do. We're just briefing you on our discussions that we've had so far. Some of the suggestions have been brought forward, and then to come up with a budget plan at the next council meeting or by no later than May the 9th meeting.
Okay.
Now, on some of this stuff, and we're still working with them, we have another meeting scheduled with them on April the 26th. The lady that spoke to us before, Alex Goodwin, her husband owns a plumbing company, and he's agreed to buy fixtures, sell them to him for cost, do the labor to do that installation. On the bathrooms, if we got quotes for 2 different proposals for bathroom upgrades, and one of them was 60, one of them was 80,000, and that didn't include the flooring or tile on the walls. So it's very expensive on those bathroom upgrades. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't get a better price, because we'd have to go and get 3 quotes or bid it, but that was just the budget numbers we were given for those proposals. So seeing that, the group felt like that it might be just as good if we went in there, put seamless rubber flooring in, new fixtures, new partitions, painted the walls, changed the light fixtures out. And that would probably work fine. Even if we do this remodeling, there's one option where we would lose one toilet in the ladies' restroom and one urinal in the men's restroom, which there's probably insufficient numbers of those in there
Already.
to begin with. The other option would be able to retain everything that's there, but we'd have to bump that alcove out and then build a block partition wall or block partition wall on the outside. And that's gonna really restrict the space between that area and around the rink, so we'd have to look in there and see if we could do that by fire code. But we're still putting all this together. This is kind of a discussion that was scheduled for the work meeting. I just wanted to brief everybody so that when we bring it to you the next time, we'll have some budget numbers and proposals, and we can see what we want to do. But we feel like we have $50,000 from that enterprise fund that we can devote to improvements to the arena for this year.
Okay, so I think when we have all that, that's how we're gonna kind of fix the symptoms. But we haven't had a discussion yet on why the arena's gotten to this shape, and why it's been allowed to go this far. And I think that's what the agenda item here is more to talk about the management arrangement. You know, so I think that's the two different tracks of discussion here, so am I correct? I mean, tonight we're talking, you want to get feedback on the management aspect of
That's
it.
correct, on both of them, so we can get some direction on at least what to start exploring or which way to go.
I know you didn't have any success when you put it out to bid last time, but is it worth putting it out to bid again? I mean, is there a harm in putting it out to bid?
Well, I think the first option, because it's been thrown up there, is for the city to take over the operations again. But we don't have any, you know, we need numbers to understand what it's gonna take for the city to operate. And I think that's, when we had that very first meeting back in
Yeah.
February, I think it was, when I was first out there, that was the thing that, you know, among staff, we talked about, okay, let's get, what's it gonna take? So, I think before we even start talking about different routes, is we need to understand, you know, the cost of that, because, you know, I was here when we switched from city management over to contracted management, and frankly, that's the reason why the arena's not in the red anymore, and, because, you know, at least at that time, we couldn't operate it at a profit, or even a break even, because of just our costs are so much different than a contractor, so I just, we need to fully understand what the city cost is gonna be, if that's an option we're gonna follow. And I don't know what the answer is, whether there is anyone else out there. I mean, we bid this out multiple times.
I know
and it
you've
was-
had no
it was-
luck.
Yeah, you know, so it's kind of between a rock and a hard place on that, so.
And here's what we're
And
probably.
things may have changed too by then, you know. so.
Well, you know, we've had a few feelers out from private individuals that feel like they could offer that service. Whether they would be qualified or not, we don't know yet. We haven't seen any proposals, but there is some interest out there.
And I think, you know, I don't, you know, the root cause of all this, you know, it may not necessarily be 100% with Gibson Management either. You know, we have a responsibility to manage those contracts, and so ultimately it's the city's responsibility for that building, and the fact that some of these things we're talking about fixing now are, you know, you come to find out these have been issues for many years, and the city's known about it, and so that's, I think that's a little bit of the frustration we have, is, you know, making sure, you know, we're gonna fix it, and I think we're kind of committed to doing that, and to make improvements, but we also gotta make sure that, you know, the management there is done a little closer, so.
So, I would like to say that some of these issues I didn't discover until we had personal tours.
Oh, most of these, I had
And
no
so
idea.
some of these
I'm saying.
just haven't reached council level, so we could not do anything
Well, no,
about it. At least, on my part, that's.
maybe, let me clarify. City staff has known about a lot of
Okay.
these issues for a long time, so.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point I'm making here. so.
Okay,
And it's honestly only since, you know, we started getting direct complaints to council members that, you know, we've had focus on it, so. But I just, you know, we gotta make sure that management structure's there. And if we stay with a contract, we gotta make sure that we're managing that contract and supervising that contract, and
Enforcing that contract.
yeah, because in some respects, I just get the feeling that, you know, it was their job to do, and we don't pass the buck. It's our facility. We just hired somebody to run it for us, so.
Well, Tim, you sat in that meeting. What is your feeling on what he says at Gibson about whether or not he thinks he can do the job that we want him to do?
He's gonna say he can do it, but, you know, I thought I got more excuses. You know, he had a lot of excuses and that, I don't know if Nate and Jack will agree with me. He didn't have any solutions. He just had, you know, the kids they should have known to do this and do that, and, you know, it's, I don't know, he just,
You
a
just
lot
don't
of,
have a
a lot of
good feeling.
excuses. He didn't, like I said, no solutions, you know.
Yeah, I'm not at all happy with these questions and answers. His answers are, well, it'll be daily rounds. They'll identify, why aren't they identifying it now on daily rounds? And why is he saying we'll take care of it in the summer, when if they identify something, they need to do it today or tomorrow, you know, this week, not next summer, especially.
Well, in his
especially
staffing issue, he says he's gonna put out, you know, look for staff. Well, he needed the staff the season. He doesn't need the staff now.
Right, you're right.
So I personally, I don't have a good feeling about what he said, and when I met him and his reasoning, you know, I think he works hard, but he has no one there, and he's not there on the most important days of the week, Saturday and Sunday. You know, he has students there.
Yeah, he never showed up for that tournament at all that weekend.
Nope, he
Especially
wasn't
when
there.
we had the issues with the Zamboni, he never showed up.
And
so.
we were there the day before. Brian, Jack, and I were there the day before and talked to him, and
Yeah.
that was a big
What,
deal.
see, he was blaming the Zamboni on R&R, weren't they there the day before?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, like I said, he's blaming it on everybody else. He's not taking any of the responsibility, so.
I still don't see a problem in putting it out for bid. Maybe there's somebody out there, maybe these feelers that, and I know of one, but maybe there's more than one, have them come up with a proposal for us. We can compare it to what the city comes up with as far as costs go, and I don't know.
You know, it may be a hybrid thing too, that we put this out for a proposal and there's someone that's out there that's really good but doesn't have a lot of experience in the operational aspects of it, like making and maintaining the ice. We have people that can do that, and maybe that's something that we at least get involved in or train them in. So there's some hybrid options, I think, to putting this out for proposals.
What's the status of the contract right now with Gibson?
He has 2 years left. So
So
The-
how do we rebid a contract in the middle of a contract?
With that, and that's what I was looking at too, we would need to provide a notice of default and a pretty detailed notice of default to go forward with termination on our part. So I think the next step is if we want to put, Gibson on notice and get a detailed satisfactory response on improvements, I think a notice of default letter would be the next step. There's no general termination clause in the contract, it's termination by default.
So can we do a request for proposals while it's still under contract?
It'd be very unusual to do a
Yeah.
request for proposals 2 years in advance of contract termination.
But would we be violating any?
You wouldn't necessarily be violating the contract, but no one's gonna bid if he can't reward it in the
Start, yeah.
contract, so.
Yeah, I mean, if we were changing the scope and how we're providing those services, to rebid that, I think it's understandable, but I'm uneasy with rebidding a contract in the middle of a contract for the exact same thing. And particularly if it may very well turn out to be the best choice is to keep our current contractor that we just made a rebid. So it's,
Well, and it's about 172,000 remaining on the contract too.
yeah, I think that's the correct figure, 85 and 87 for the next 2 years.
So I think before I think it's a consideration we can do, but before we make decisions, I think we need some
Well,
more
are we in a,
information.
are we in a
We need to
position?
understand what the city costs would be.
Well, are we even in a position that, I mean, does Gibson understand that they're on, excuse the term, but thin ice? I mean, do they understand that we may go for default of the contract, or do they just think they have to clean up their act a little?
That was made expressly clear
Was
to
it?
them when we had their meeting, that we
Okay.
were extremely dissatisfied with their performance and we were considering other options.
So a letter of default would not be a shock to them if we,
So I don't know, if this is kind of a double edge. This isn't the
Double-edged
first
sword.
time that Gibson's
Yeah.
been in this situation with us. So on one hand, this is the second time he's been in hot water, you know. But on the same token, the first time, we came up with a pretty strict remedy and they reacted and
Yeah.
they performed really
Yeah.
well for at least a few
Yeah.
years after that. So, and I just want to say that, just to throw out there that I think Gibson has the capability of fixing these things. I don't know intent or what the follow-through would be. But the last time it was, I mean, Jack, you worked with me, it was a long
Yeah.
list of
Yeah.
stuff we
Sure
did,
was.
and they made improvements, and St. Francis Hockey
Yeah.
noticed, the school noticed too, so it's
Well-
just let slip, you know.
The key to that is we're going to have to become much more involved in the monitoring of his performance,
Yeah.
should he continue in this capacity.
And not that it's an excuse for any of the
Yeah.
deficiencies that we're seeing, but we can't discount the fact that hiring staff is difficult for everyone to do.
oh, it's
Yeah.
very difficult for everyone.
And this is not a very supervised position too, so.
And
But some of those things have nothing to do with
I
staff.
absolutely, I absolutely, but. And that's one of the considerations too, you know, my gut feeling, if the city takes this over again, our costs are going much higher. But I think until we see numbers and see how it can be done and how it can be done efficiently, I mean, I think until we see that, we need to know whether it's even an option, because.
When's the last time the city did it?
2015.
2015,
We did
the
it in
city did it?
2014 and 2015.
So we have.
No,
No,
the
no,
la-
no, 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 no.
2006.
Since we
Oh,
operated.
since we operated it?
2006,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have the hours, we just need to plug in the,
We've started to get some numbers together for what it would cost the city to operate. We'd have to hire 4 to 6 part-time employees. A total of around 2,200 hours would be needed to cover all the different times throughout the season. We'd have the same issue that Gibson has, is finding seasonals. We just had our summer seasonal position open. In 2 years, we've got 1 application. So I think we're gonna have that same issue with that. There's gonna be some time for our full-time employees involved with this. And part of the issue is the arena is an enterprise fund. It's run as a business. So the city, once we get involved, we're using somewhat taxpayer money. We're gonna have to figure out how to keep that separate to account for that in our accounting. If the city does run it, we're gonna have the more payroll with the other employees to deal with, more of the hiring, the HR side of things as well. So we do have some numbers put together. I think we can definitely do a better job of supervising the existing contract as well. We spent a lot of money on that arena, and any of the building improvements that we put into that have been money that's been made above and beyond what the users have spent on it. And it's kind of a small pot of money. We've done roof improvements, we've done HVAC improvements, we put new boards in there. And once
doors.
COVID hit, everything kind of shut down. I think some of the supervision probably went down with it. I had a guy there for all of 2020 for the most part, and we had pretty good supervision then, not so much this past year. So I definitely think we can step our side up on that.
okay.
So yeah, I mean, as far as the costs go, it depends on how we're gonna figure out the full-time employees. I do have an employee that's excellent, he's worked there in the past. One of my issues is if we don't have him, then we're gonna have to actually hire somebody, because I don't have anybody else that can do that. A big part of running that arena is making the ice and making sure that ice is good, and we didn't have any complaints on the actual quality of the ice. For for the athletes that are on there. The ice has been good. It's just the building is old and they did a poor job of cleaning it up. We met with the users, which is the St. Francis Youth Hockey, the high school boys and girls coach. So it's basically their building. They're the only ones that use it. They pay for it. Their money goes to pay for the contract and actually make the building improvements too. I think we have a pretty good plan for improvements. They want to do a quick upgrade on the bathroom, new fixtures, new flooring, new paint, not a full-on remodel. Use some more money to do flooring throughout the lobby and the arena and the locker rooms, fresh coat of paint the whole inside of the arena. And they brought up a good point. It's an old building. It's going to be old. It's not going to be these new facilities that Coon Rapids,
Like
Andover,
Andover.
Centennial have. The boys varsity coach, you know, he said, I love this building. It has that old school barn Minnesota hockey feel.
It
I think
does.
that's something we
It
just have
does,
to
it very much
have to
does.
embrace that for that building. That's what it's going to be. So
So the plan is to have something to us in May?
By no later, we'll have it by May the 9th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
Thank
other
you.
discussion? All right, thanks, Jack, thanks, Nate. Item G3.
The city received notification from North Metro Animal Care and Control that effective June 1st, 2022, they were closing and discontinuing service to their clients. North Metro Animal Care and Control has provided animal control and impound services to the city of East Bethel since November of 2021. Staff is currently investigating other sources for animal control and impound providers. At this time, the current option would be, in the interim, to contract with the Humane Society for impound service and potentially utilize our Anoka County Sheriff's Office contracted CSO hours for animal transport to the impound facility. Additional CSO hours may be needed to provide transport. Staff has contacted the Anoka County Sheriff's Office and the Humane Society to discuss our options, but have no details at this time. We should discuss the alternative of advertising for proposals to this contract. While we only had 2 responders to our 2021 request, it may be useful to at least check to see if there are any other providers for animal control and impound. One of the things that were recommended in the letter from Mark Anderson were to explore the possibility of the formation of a county animal control and impound service through a joint powers agreement. While that sounds good, it would be very hard to effect. It would also be very expensive. And if there are other options, and that's what I think our focus should be at this time. Not to totally disregard the other possibility, but we're going to need something to do in the short term. To do a JPA and get this going would probably take a couple years, because there would have to be a facility that would have to be either built, purchased, or repurposed. And there would have to be the buy-in from several cities probably to even make it feasible. But in that case, our cost would go up significantly. As a result, council's request to discuss this item. Now it's kind of a matter of information. We're gathering some other options. Derek Peters will be able to discuss this more with us at the meeting on the 25th. And we're seeking any kind of direction as to your preference as a means to continue this service.
Anybody find out what Oak Grove's gonna do, or what Now Then, or any of the other cities that he has?
Well, that's one of the things that we're gonna do. We're gonna at least contact Oak Grove, St. Francis, and Andover
Okay,
to see what their plans are, to see if it's possible to actually join in with them for this type of service. So that'll be one of the things we'll be able to provide more detail to you at the next meeting.
and what happens if we get out of the dog business?
Then it becomes the sheriff's department's responsibility to take care of those animals, and then that will probably result in probably some significant increases in our next contract.
And it's correct that municipalities are not required to provide this. It's-
Correct.
Okay. It's discretionary.
Because then Anoka County Sheriffs would charge us.
Yeah, it'd be an additional, this would be an add-on to their services that they're currently performing.
Have you checked that, I think there's one in Ogilvy, is that too far out, or?
The one in Ogilvy, we talked to them the last time we requested proposals last November, and they said it was too far away
Too
for them
far.
to provide any service. They do Isanti County.
Okay.
Well, I think the only way we're gonna know is if there's a private services out there is to
Yep.
do an RFP.
Yep.
Yep.
And then at, you know, depending on what those results are, then we're in a position to make a better decision where to go, so.
Why is Mark getting out of this? Did he say?
He did, but I'll send you his reasons in writing.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with anything involving the relationship with the
That's
city,
personnel
though.
matter,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you need,
I'll make a motion that staff prepare an RFP, for council review for the next council meeting.
Second.
Motion made second, discussion.
I just want to say, I think actually, we have to do an RFP, but I think in the long term, maybe if the county took the whole thing over, I think that might be a good idea. But I'm actually gonna talk to the commissioners and see what they say. Because maybe they know of a building they could use and take it up, because right now I think there's a lot of Anoka County cities in trouble with animal control right now.
Convince them,
Yeah, I'll talk to them.
that's,
Well, first step is find out if there's
Right,
any other interest out there, so.
I agree.
Any further discussion? To the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Jack, you had sent an email out about the Trunk Highway 65 corridor letter. Did you want that added to the agenda?
That's correct. I'll bring that up in the staff report.
You want us to act on it though, right?
That's correct.
I'll just make a motion to amend our agenda to add item G4, discussion of the letter of support for Trunk Highway 65 corridor improvements. Motion made second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's now on the agenda. Jack?
I sent out a request from Joe McPherson, the county highway engineer, today, requesting a letter of support for their grant applications for highway improvements at the intersections in Blaine of 99th Avenue, 105th, 109th, and 117th. They're looking for support from member cities, from the North Trunk Highway 65 Corridor Coalition. They'll be using this as their grant application process. In the attachment I sent, they've already secured several $1 million in grants. The total project cost on this is going to be very, very significant. They're moving along pretty good with some of the things, and they think they'll be in a position to start on some of these projects as soon as that Highway 10 project is completed. And they've requested this letter of support from East Bethel. And if we could get that letter to them as soon as possible, they'd greatly appreciate that.
Any additional information you sent out showed that the three major intersections in Blaine are, their plan is to have that freeway.
That's correct.
Freeway section.
They're talking about separated grade interchanges there
Okay.
at all four of those.
well, that's gonna be a construction nightmare.
But
Not our
it'll
problem.
actually have a good impact on us, I
Yeah,
think.
it will.
Is there a motion on approving this letter?
I'll make a motion to approve the letter to Joe McPherson at Anoka County Transportation Division regarding the Trunk Highway 65 corridor.
Second.
Motion made second, discussion. Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Now on to your staff report, Jack.
All right. Two big items. The town hall meeting is scheduled for April 21st. My first question is, I'm assuming we want to continue the same format. And is there anything you'd like to add to any discussion part of that meeting?
No impact there.
Okay. The next item is on April the 25th, we have our local board of appeals and equalization meeting, which is everybody's chance to appeal their property tax valuation or their tax classification. So if you want to do that, then please contact the city hall to let us know you're coming, or contact the city assessor and let him know your issue, and he'll try to get out there before the meeting to get it settled. But this is the only time of the year that we can actually act on those. So this is
And what time is that meeting?
5:30.
5:30?
And just to reiterate, this is the valuation, which is probably a bigger impact on your taxes than the actual tax changes that communities make, so.
Yeah, it's an integral part of it.
And it's
Sometimes
nothing
it's
the
not,
city can do, so, I mean,
Yeah.
it's December, we can't change that,
no,
so.
this is not about your property tax, it's about your valuation of your
Valuation.
property.
Which is just as important.
What's the date of the equalization?
April 25th.
That's
the
published, that's
next-
published in the notices.
That's correct, that's published in your tax notification, and that'll be prior to the council
Council
meeting that
meeting.
night.
Okay.
5:30,
Anything else, Jack?
that's all I have.
All right. Council reports, Brian.
The Trunk Highway 65 Corridor Coalition came up with their final version of the video. Jack, would you have that email and be able to play it? That is from Joe McPherson, came in on April 6th. And has a link.
Let me see something here if I can find that.
Otherwise, I can forward it to you.
I should have it. I think I do.
While Jack's looking it up, this is the video that was, of course, made to present to a legislator to address problems and issues that Highway 65 has to hopefully attract more funding from the state to Highway 65 all the way from Spring Lake Park, Fridley, up to more beyond. I think it's just up to Kennebec County, though. Our coalition doesn't exceed beyond that, so.
The North Metro needs a better State Highway 65 that promotes regional growth and prosperity. Over the past 50 years, neighborhoods, businesses, and residents have changed. All the while, Highway 65 has remained the same. The cities and townships along Highway 65 are booming. Some have even doubled in population. We've seen the addition of housing, businesses, entertainment, and recreation centers. And because of this, people enjoy our communities. To continue to be a place people want to be, travel needs to be safe and reliable with no barriers. Here are some of the challenges. Highway 65 has a higher frequency of congestion and delay at more intersections than any other major travel corridor in the Twin Cities metro area. Imagine putting a stoplight every 3/4 of a mile on Interstate 35W, which has similar traffic counts. Vehicles stack through the traffic lights on Highway 65 during the busiest times, forcing drivers to wait through several cycles. The wait times on side streets make it difficult to turn onto and off the highway. This also makes it unsafe for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross. The physical and socioeconomic divides are extremely visible today and will get worse if nothing is done. Driving on and across the highway is a stressful experience for residents, commuters, visitors, and businesses. Transporting products and services can be extremely difficult, and time delays are expensive. Delays and congestion are expected to worsen as traffic continues to grow. In the future, it could take up to 40 minutes to get from Spring Lake Park to Ham Lake. That's only 10 miles. Arriving safely is on people's minds too. Crashes happen on Highway 65 more often than similar roads, and largely during the peak travel times. The negative effects of our dangerously outdated corridor don't end at the pavement. It's on us to maximize today's infrastructure funding to implement solutions for our growing region. Our coalition of cities and counties, from Columbia Heights to Mora, is calling on our legislative partners to prioritize investments in a safer Highway 65 that manages congestion, moves traffic, protects pedestrians and bicyclists, and supports our local economies.
The purpose of this video is they're gonna use it to show state legislators when they start lobbying for funds for some of these highway improvements. It's a nice little segue into the actual nuts and bolts of the presentations and kind of gives them just a little perspective on what's going on. So this is really the first project that this coalition has done in quite a while, and I think you were on there, Steve, when we first discussed doing this as a project, and Brian's been on there as a follow-up. So this is the product they produced.
Yeah, and this video is also available for the city of East Bethel to use for any road projects or anything that we wanted to address that this video would help with.
You know, and one thing, you know, with the coalition, I mean, this is focused on Ham Lake to Spring Lake Park, but what every community north of there recognizes is that what's done to the south
Yeah.
affects the travel to the north, and that's why the communities that are far away from this area, you know, support changes like this, because, you know, it's either their residents trying to get back to their homes or it's businesses trying to deliver goods to their areas. So it's an important corridor. So
Yep.
Very good.
So, otherwise, that's all I have. Spring town hall meeting next week.
Okay, Wanda.
The only two things I have is, once again, the chamber breakfast is Thursday morning for anybody who wants to attend. And then I want to wish everybody a happy and blessed Easter. This will be the last time we see you before Easter.
Tim.
The fire department this morning, they had SCBA annual training, and we have a booster day meeting this Wednesday. We're still looking for a couple volunteers. You don't have to come to the meetings. We're just looking for a couple people to help out with lining up the parade on parade day. So if anybody's interested, get a hold of Carrie or Stephanie, and they too would like to wish everybody a happy and safe Easter. That's all I've got.
Okay, Suzanne.
Okay, I wanted to make a comment on that video. I didn't understand why they didn't show the worst of the worst congestion on 65, which I travel
Well,
several times a day, and
that
I never see it that light.
that was actually brought up a little bit with making this. That question was brought up too. Why couldn't you find more congestion stuff, or et cetera, et cetera? Well, part of this drone footage was done during COVID, and so people were working at home, and there actually was not as much traffic on the roads that they could not show that.
Okay, the only other thing I have is the seniors have been talking to me, and they want to know or if the city has any ability to put a ice machine back in there.
We do.
They said they don't, the one that's back there doesn't work, and they were having a get together, and they talked to me and said, you know, we need a new ice machine back here.
Did they contact staff?
I have no idea. I didn't ask them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll talk to them about it. I'll bring it
Sounds
up.
like Nate hasn't heard of this either.
We got a price for it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it was,
We're looking.
We fixed it a couple times, and it's not able to be repaired anymore. We got a price on it. I don't remember what it was, Jack. Do you remember it off the top of your head?
It's pretty expensive.
It's really expensive.
Need
Thank
a
you.
used one.
Anyways, happy Easter, everybody. Have a wonderful 3-day coming up.
I just got one thing, and just been wanting to talk about a couple meetings is our consent agenda. And I don't know how to frame it, other than for quite a while, it doesn't seem to be a consent agenda anymore. I mean, we removed 5 of the 7 items tonight, so, the whole idea of the consent agenda, these are things that aren't controversial and shouldn't, really have a need to discuss too much. And even a couple of these discussion items tonight weren't really in-depth questions, or there certainly could have been questions that could have been asked before the meeting to get the answer, so you don't have to ask the question, pull items off the agenda. And so I think if we try to do that a little bit more, and then Jack, if there's anything on here that you think is going to be pulled, we might as well just make it an agenda item, because we're just wasting time every meeting going through and pulling, I mean, 1 or 2 things I can understand, but, this is like the second or third meeting in a row where we've had more items pulled than we've had gone through. So I guess it's more of a suggestion to us, if we have questions, we have plenty of time to ask staff before the meeting, especially if they're just easy questions. And it also gives staff a chance to, provide more backup if they need to for the meeting. So, I mean, I think in the spirit of just trying to keep that part of the meeting moving a little smoother, so.
Would typos in the minutes be something that can just be addressed to staff?
I think maybe it's
Does it, but that changes the minutes, does it?
That's what I'm asking.
Typos. Chris?
we've little typos we've changed, we just change it, so.
Yeah, for example, like including a T on that, I would treat that as a clerical error that could be changed. But if there's a substantive change, that would be different.
Because I know probably the main reason they get pulled so much is for typos and those reasons.
Yeah,
so.
to me, I'm not so concerned about minutes, because those are mistakes in the document, and it's easy. But,
If it's an actual
the
change
bill,
in
the bill list and going through, some of these things that, if you want a discussion item, I mean, are we still getting the draft agendas before the full agenda goes out? I don't think we've got them past couple of times.
No, if you want those, I can send those out earlier in the week.
Because that'd be a way of, if you see something consent agenda, it's like, let's just take it off the consent agenda and put it on the regular agenda, so.
I know, this came in at Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the packet and the email, and I didn't get my hard copy till sometime on the weekend. And I was busy all day on Monday. I didn't have time to call.
But Suzanne, this is every meeting. It's almost every meeting this happens. And we all have the time
I
to,
can't call people on the weekends, and that's when I read these.
Jack's here for 12 hours on Monday before the meeting starts, so.
You can call me on the weekends if you want to.
Send him an
And if
email.
you send him an email, he'll
Send him an
respond.
email, he'll respond.
So, I mean, we all know that, so. That's all I have. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a
Second?
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.